"Can I work as a waitress to eat the leftovers?" asked the homeless girl to the owner. Robert Fields nearly choked on his coffee when he heard those words coming from the entrance of his restaurant. After 30 years running the establishment in Greenwich Village, New York City, he had seen it all, but never a child asking for work in exchange for food. It was when she repeated the question that Robert truly paid attention to the girl. She couldn't have been more than 12, wearing a faded brown blouse and patched-up jeans. Her blonde hair was messy, but it was her green eyes that stood out. There was something in them that made him hesitate before simply sending her away. "Listen here, kid. This isn't a place for children. Where are your parents?" Robert tried to sound firm, but his voice came out softer than he intended. "Sir, I know how to work. I can wait tables, wash dishes, sweep floors. I just want a plate of food at the end of the day." The head cook, Martha Johnson, 62 years old, emerged from the kitchen holding a wooden spoon like it was a weapon. Her grey hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her face showed irritation. "Robert, what's this about? We're not starting to hand out charity now. Send that girl to find her parents." But something about the child's demeanor intrigued Robert. She didn't seem to be begging. There was dignity in her offer, as if she were proposing honest work in exchange for fair payment. "How do you know how to wait tables?" he asked, ignoring Martha's disapproving look. "I sometimes stand on the corner and watch through the window. I've seen how the girls do it. They hold the tray with their left hand, take orders with their right, always smile and say thank you at the end. I also noticed you always wipe the tables before setting the plates." Robert was impressed by her attention to detail. Martha rolled her eyes and went back to the kitchen, muttering something about kids being too clever. The lunch crowd had been slow that March Tuesday. Robert glanced at the few customers scattered around the tables and made a decision that would change his life forever. "All right, just one night. You help with dinner and eat what's left, but if you mess up, you're out immediately." The girl's eyes shone with gratitude. "I promise you won't regret it, sir. Oh, my name is Emily Grace, but you can call me Emmy." Over the next few hours, Robert watched Emmy from a distance. She really knew what she was doing. She memorized where the napkins and silverware were, quickly learned how to operate the coffee machine. Martha, despite her initial resistance, ended up teaching her how to stack plates quietly. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. By 6 in the evening, the restaurant began filling up for dinner. Emmy put on an apron Martha found in the back, tied her hair into a ponytail, and got to work. Her first table was an elderly couple who ordered the daily special. "Good evening. Welcome to Village Corner. Tonight we have shrimp risotto and grilled chicken breast with vegetables. What would you like to drink?" Robert stopped what he was doing to watch. The girl's natural ease was astonishing. She smiled genuinely, stood straight, and treated the customers with a respect some adult waiters didn't show. The evening went smoothly until an elegant woman walked into the restaurant. Emmy was carrying a tray of hot plates when she saw her. Her hands trembled violently, and the tray crashed to the floor with a deafening clatter. Silence fell over the room. Every eye turned to the girl, who had gone pale as a ghost. The elegant woman had also stopped and was staring intently at Emmy. I'm so sorry," Emmy stammered, bending down to pick up the broken pieces. Robert Fields quickly stepped forward to help, but noticed the girl's hands were shaking uncontrollably. The elegant woman, whom he recognized as Victoria Williams, a regular customer, slowly walked toward them. "Robert, can I speak with you for a minute?" Victoria whispered something in his ear that made him turn pale. Emmy tried to bolt for the back door, but Robert gently caught her by the arm. "Easy, nothing's going to happen, let's talk." "I don't want to talk, I just want to leave." It was then that Robert noticed something falling from the torn pocket of Emmy's pants. It was an old photo, yellowed with time. In the picture, a young blonde woman hugged a baby. The background in the image made him freeze completely. "Where did you get this?" Emmy quickly grabbed the photo, clutching it to her chest. "It was my grandma's. It's all I have left of her." "And where did your grandmother work?" "Here. I mean at the restaurant that used to be here. She always said it was the happiest place in her life." Robert felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. Martha Johnson approached, curious about the conversation, and when she saw the photo, she covered her mouth with her hands. Good heavens, that's Eleanor. The name echoed through the silence of the restaurant like a ghost from the past. Eleanor Carter had been Robert's first employee when he opened the Village Corner 25 years ago. She had also been his best friend, almost like an older sister who had helped him build everything from scratch. Your grandmother? She had a granddaughter, Robert asked, his voice choked. I lived with her since I was little. My parents left when I was a baby. Grandma Eleanor raised me alone. Victoria Williams was still there, watching the scene with tears in her eyes. Robert remembered what she had whispered. That girl has the same eyes as Eleanor. Emmy, where's your grandmother now? The girl lowered her head, fighting back tears. She's gone. It's been 3 months. Since then, I've been living on the streets. Robert's heart shattered. Eleanor had been fired by him 10 years ago under circumstances that still haunted him. Money had gone missing from the register, and Eleanor had been working that day. With no proof but pressured by the other employees, Robert had made the decision he regretted most in his life. Martha, close the restaurant. Let's talk. In the following minutes, as Martha flipped the sign on the door, Robert tried to gather his thoughts. How was it possible that Eleanor's granddaughter had shown up right here, asking for work, and how had she survived 3 months alone on the streets of New York City? Victoria Williams approached hesitantly. Robert, I need to tell you something. About that missing money. About Eleanor. Her tone sent a chill down Robert's spine. After all these years, would he finally learn the truth? It was me, Victoria said, lowering her eyes. I took the money from the register. I was going through a really tough time financially. My husband had lost his job and we'd just had our second child. I came here every day for lunch because it was cheap, and that day the register was open. I took $300. The silence was deafening. Robert remembered the exact amount that had gone missing. $300 that had cost Eleanor her job and her dignity. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because I'm a coward, Victoria sobbed. When you fired Eleanor, I was so scared I could never come back here. Until 2 years ago, when my life got better, I started coming again. Always hoping I'd run into her to apologize. Emmy listened with wide eyes. Martha had to sit down, overwhelmed by the emotion. Grandma Eleanor always said you were a good man, mister. Robert. That one day he would discover she was innocent. She never held a grudge against me? Never. She said you were protecting the business, that in your place she would have done the same thing. Robert couldn't hold back his tears. Eleanor had lost her job unfairly, raised a granddaughter alone, and still bore no resentment. He had failed her unforgivably. Emmy, you said you've been living on the streets for 3 months. Where exactly? There's an awning near the subway station. I stay there at night. During the day I walk around the city, look for cans to sell. Sometimes someone gives me food. Martha stood up abruptly. This can't go on. Robert, we have to do something. I know how to work, Emmy insisted. I don't want charity. I want to work honestly like Grandma taught me. It was then that Robert noticed something else important. The whole time they'd been talking, Martha had been deeply moved by the story, but there was something more in her eyes. Martha, you're hiding something. The cook hesitated before answering. 4 months ago, when I heard Eleanor had gotten very sick, I tried to adopt her, she said, pointing to Emmy. I went to the house where they lived, but Eleanor said Emmy didn't want to, that the girl had promised to take care of herself. Emmy flushed with shame. Grandma was very weak. I didn't want to be a burden to anyone. I promised her I'd manage on my own. And are you managing? Robert asked. I try. Some days are hard. Sometimes I go 2 days without eating. But Grandma always said those who work honestly never truly go without. Robert looked at Martha and saw she was fighting back tears. Victoria Williams stood there, clearly determined to be part of the solution. Emmy, you're going to live with me, Martha announced. It's not charity. You'll work here at the restaurant, go to school and have a real home. I can't accept that. Why not? Because I promised Grandma I'd make it on my own, that I'd be strong like she was. Robert knelt to meet Emmy's eye level. Your grandmother was a very wise woman, but do you know what she taught me most? Emmy shook her head. That accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Eleanor accepted my help when she was starting here, and that's how we built a beautiful business together. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Emmy's eyes filled with tears. But what if I can't pay you back? You'll pay by working honestly, exactly as your grandmother would have. Victoria stepped forward. And I'll help with school expenses. It's the least I can do to start making up for the harm I caused. In the days that followed, Emmy's life began to transform. Martha took her home, a simple but cozy apartment 2 blocks from the restaurant. Emmy got her own room, new clothes, and for the first time in months slept in a real bed. At the restaurant, she proved to be an exemplary employee. She arrived early, helped with cleaning, served tables efficiently, and still found time to assist Martha in the kitchen. Customers began commenting on the polite, helpful girl. Robert decided to search old records to better understand Eleanor's story. In the office files, he found contracts, receipts, and a folder untouched for years. Inside, he discovered something that changed everything. Eleanor hadn't just been his first employee. She had invested her own savings to help Robert open the restaurant. There was a document signed by both, where she loaned $5,000 for the kitchen equipment. The paper also showed that she would be considered an informal partner in the business. Robert was stunned. How had he forgotten this? How had he let a partner leave accused of theft? He sought out a lawyer to understand the legal implications. The answer was clear. Eleanor was entitled to a share of the restaurant's profits all these years. And now, that right passed to her only heir, Emmy. When Robert told Emmy about the discovery, she reacted unexpectedly. "I don't want any money. Grandma never mentioned this. If she wanted me to know, she would have told me." "Emmy, your grandmother probably didn't even remember these documents. It was a long time ago." "It doesn't matter. I just want to work honestly." The girl's response moved Robert deeply. Eleanor had raised a granddaughter with the same values she held: dignity, honesty, and pride in one's work. But Victoria Williams had a different perspective. "Emmy, your grandmother worked hard to help build this place. It's not about money, it's about justice. Grandma always said those who do good don't need to demand repayment." She was right. But those who receive the good have an obligation to acknowledge it. For a few weeks, a routine settled in. Emmy worked at the restaurant after school, earned a small salary that she insisted on sharing with Martha to help with household expenses, and slowly began to trust that her life had truly changed for the better. Then, on a Thursday in April, everything got complicated again. Emmy was serving a table when 2 men in suits entered the restaurant. They showed Robert their identification and asked to speak with him privately. "Mr. Fields, we've received an anonymous complaint about child labor at this establishment. We need to investigate." Robert felt his blood run cold. Someone had reported the restaurant. His first instinct was to hide Emmy, but she flatly refused. "I didn't do anything wrong. I won't hide like a thief." The inspectors observed Emmy working and spoke with other employees. Martha explained that she was the girl's legal guardian and that Emmy only helped out a few hours a day, always after school. Even so, they were forced to issue a fine and prohibit Emmy from working until all the documentation was in order. That night in Martha's apartment, Emmy cried inconsolably, "I ruined everything. Because of me, Mr. Robert is going to have trouble." "It's not your fault, sweetheart. Someone made that complaint out of spite." "But who would do something like that?" The answer came the next day when Robert received an unexpected visitor. It was Sandra Carter, a 50-year-old woman who introduced herself as Eleanor's aunt. "I heard my sister's daughter is living with strangers," she said accusatorily. "You're related to Eleanor." "I'm her sister, and I've come to take Emmy. She should have been with me from the start." Robert was confused. Eleanor had never mentioned a sister. Martha, who was present, was also suspicious. "Why didn't you come forward before? Emmy lived on the streets for 3 months." "I was traveling. I only just found out Eleanor had passed away." Something about Sandra's story didn't add up. She avoided Robert's gaze and seemed too nervous for someone who just wanted to care for her niece. "Where do you live?" In Newark. I have a big house. Emmy will have everything she needs there. When Emmy came home from school and saw Sandra, her reaction was complete surprise. Aunt Sandra, what are you doing here? I've come to take you, dear. You're going to live with me now. But I'm fine here. Martha takes care of me. I work at the restaurant, I'm going to school. That's no life for a child. You need a real family. Robert noticed Emmy looked visibly uncomfortable. There was something about the relationship between the two that didn't seem natural. Emmy, do you want to go with your aunt? I don't know. Sandra was irritated by the hesitation. This isn't about what you want. I'm her family. I have more right than you. The situation was escalating quickly. Robert needed to understand who this woman really was and why she had shown up now. Mrs. Carter, could you give us some time to sort things out? Emmy is settled here. Maybe we can make this transition gradually. There's nothing to sort out. She's coming with me today. That's when Martha asked the crucial question. Were you the one who reported the child labor complaint? Sandra's silence spoke volumes. She looked down, and Robert understood everything. Why did you do that? Because a child shouldn't be working. She should be studying and playing. But Emmy is studying, and she enjoys working. That doesn't matter. A child should be a child. Emmy, who had stayed quiet, finally spoke up. Aunt Sandra, why did you never visit us? Grandma Eleanor always talked about you, but she said you hadn't spoken in years. That's grown-up business. Grandma said you got mad when she decided to raise me. That you said I'd be too much trouble. Sandra's expression changed completely. She turned red and began to stutter. I was going through a hard time back then. I couldn't help. Robert grew suspicious of Sandra's true intentions. If she really cared about Emmy, why hadn't she shown up when the girl was living on the streets? Mrs. Carter, may I ask how you found out Emmy was here? An acquaintance told me. Someone who knew Eleanor. The answer was too vague. Robert decided he needed to investigate further before letting Emmy go. How about we let Emmy decide? She's been through enough. She deserves a say in her own life. Sandra seemed uneasy with the suggestion. She's a minor. She can't decide. But she can have an opinion. Emmy looked at Martha, then Robert, and finally at her aunt. Aunt Sandra, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you remember what Grandma Eleanor did on her birthday? Sandra hesitated. She made a cake. No, she never liked cake. Every year we went to church and then to the cemetery to visit Grandpa John. It was her tradition. Sandra's face paled. It was clear she hadn't known. Emmy, that was so long ago. I might have forgotten. It was in January, Aunt. Just 3 months ago. Robert realized Sandra wasn't who she claimed to be, or at least she wasn't as close to Eleanor as she pretended. But why would a stranger want to take Emmy? The answer came when Victoria Williams arrived at the restaurant and recognized Sandra immediately. Robert, this woman works for a domestic staffing agency. I saw her ad in the paper last week. Everything made sense. Sandra had learned about Emmy through her own complaint, seeing an opportunity to place a minor as a domestic worker in households. It was an illegal, cruel scheme. You're leaving now, Robert said, fighting back anger. And if you come back, I'll call the authorities. Sandra tried to argue, but knew she'd been exposed. She stormed out, shouting threats about returning with lawyers. Emmy was trembling. She said she was my aunt. How could she lie about something like that? There are bad people in the world, sweetheart, Martha explained. But there are good ones too, and right now you're surrounded by good people. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. In the days that followed, Robert worked to gather all the necessary documents to formalize Emmy's place at the restaurant. She discovered that minors could work as apprentices in activities that wouldn't interfere with their studies or pose health risks. Martha Johnson formalized the temporary guardianship process for Emmy with the full support of Robert Fields and Victoria Williams as witnesses. The girl would finally have legal and emotional stability, but fate still had surprises in store for all of them. It was a busy Friday when a family entered the restaurant for dinner. The couple appeared to be in their 40s, dressed elegantly, accompanied by a blonde girl who immediately caught Emmy's attention. The two locked eyes and froze. The resemblance was striking, not just the blonde hair and green eyes, but nearly identical facial features. It was as if Emmy was looking into a mirror. The wealthy girl stood up from the table and slowly walked toward Emmy. Both extended their arms at the same time, comparing an identical birthmark on their right wrists. You're my sister," the wealthy girl whispered. The entire restaurant fell silent. Robert Fields, Martha Johnson, and even the other customers realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. "What's your name?" Emmy asked, her voice trembling. "Emily Grace." "And yours?" "Emily Grace too, but they call me Emmy." The two began to cry and spontaneously hugged. The adoptive parents of the wealthy girl were completely bewildered. "How is this possible?" the elegant woman asked. Robert Fields stepped in to mediate. "Perhaps we should talk calmly. This is very important for both of them." The man, who introduced himself as Dr. Frederick Anderson, was a doctor, and his wife, Patricia, was a university professor. They had adopted Emily Grace when she was just 2 years old, through a legal process. "We always knew Emily had a twin sister," Patricia explained, "but we were told she had been adopted by another family." Emmy listened with wide eyes. "I never knew I had a sister. Grandma Eleanor never told me." "Maybe she wanted to protect you," Robert suggested. "Eleanor was always very careful with your feelings." The two girls refused to separate. They talked incessantly, discovering similarities that went beyond physical appearance. Both loved to draw, adored chocolate ice cream, and shared the same fear of thunder. Dr. Frederick and Patricia proposed taking Emmy home that same night. "She can share a room with Emily. We can take care of both of them." But Emmy hesitated. "I can't abandon Martha. She took care of me when I needed it most." "And the restaurant?" she added. "I promised Mr. Robert I'd work honestly." Emily Grace, the wealthy sister, made a declaration that surprised everyone. "Then I'll live here too. I want to stay close to my sister." "Emily, don't be ridiculous," said Dr. Frederick. "You have an established life with us. You always told me family is what matters most. Emmy is my family. We're your family too. I know, and I love you. But she's my twin sister. We've been apart for 12 years. I don't want to be separated from her again." The situation created a complex emotional standoff. The Andersons loved Emily Grace as their daughter, but understood the bond between the sisters. Martha had grown attached to Emmy and didn't want to lose her. Robert saw the two girls as a chance to honor Eleanor's memory. "Why don't we try a gradual solution?" suggested Victoria Williams, who had witnessed the entire scene. "The girls can visit each other regularly while you work out the legal details." Dr. Frederick agreed, but proposed something more ambitious. "What if we helped financially to ensure Emmy has the best possible conditions here? Private education, medical care, whatever she needs." "No," Emmy said firmly. "I don't want charity. It's not charity, it's family taking care of family." The answer touched the hearts of everyone present. Robert realized he was facing a unique opportunity to do the right thing. "I have a proposal," he said. "Emmy, would you accept me as your legal guardian? Officially, with all the responsibilities and rights. In return, you keep working here, living with Martha, but with the full support of the Anderson family." It was a solution that preserved Emmy's dignity while ensuring her well-being. The Andersons could be part of her life without taking her away from the environment where she felt safe. "What about visits between the sisters?" asked Emily Grace. "Every weekend, one will visit the other, and holidays and vacations you'll spend together." Everyone agreed to the arrangement, but life still had more surprises in store. 3 weeks later, Emily Grace fell ill during a visit to the restaurant. Dr. Frederick took her to the hospital immediately, and the diagnosis was serious. She needed an urgent bone marrow transplant. Emmy was the first to volunteer as a donor. "We're twins. It should work." The tests confirmed it. Emmy was a perfect match. The procedure would be simple for her, but would save her sister's life. Dr. Frederick and Patricia were moved by Emmy's generosity. "How can we ever thank you for this?" "By taking good care of my sister. That's all I want." The transplant was a success. During Emily Grace's recovery, the two shared a hospital room. Robert, Martha, and the Andersons took turns visiting. It was during one of these visits that Martha brought an old box she'd found in the apartment where Eleanor had lived. "I found this among your grandmother's things," she told Emmy. "It seems important." Inside the box were letters, documents, and a sealed envelope with Emmy's name. Inside it was a letter Eleanor had written months before passing. "My dearest Emmy, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer by your side. I want you to know you were the joy of my life. I cared for you with all the love in my heart. There's something I never told you because I wanted to protect you. You have a twin sister. When your parents left, we couldn't keep both of you. Your sister was adopted by a good family and you stayed with me. I always knew you'd find each other one day. Fate works in mysterious ways. At the bottom of this box is an important document. It's the deed to a piece of land I bought with my savings. Now it's yours. Use it to do good as I always taught you. With all my love, Grandma Eleanor." At the bottom of the box was indeed a deed. The land was in a neighborhood that had grown significantly in value over the years. Its current worth was enough to change Emmy's life completely, but she had a different idea. "I want to turn this land into something special, a place where kids like me can learn skills, study, and have a chance at a better life." Robert was proud of Emmy's maturity. "You want to start a vocational school? I want to create a place where no one has to choose between dignity and survival, where kids can work honestly while they study, like Grandma Eleanor always taught me." Dr. Frederick and Patricia offered to help with the medical and educational aspects of the project. Victoria Williams suggested using her connections to secure support from local business owners. Martha would oversee the culinary courses, and Robert would be the general coordinator, using all his experience in the food industry. The project took 2 years to materialize, but when it was finished, it was exactly as Emmy had dreamed. The Eleanor Carter Institute offered vocational training for underprivileged youth, always upholding the principle that honest work is the foundation of dignity. Emily Grace, fully recovered, helped as an art instructor. Emmy divided her time between her regular studies and coordinating customer service courses. Robert had finally found a way to honor Eleanor's memory. The Village Corner restaurant became one of the training sites for the Institute's students, offering real work experience. Martha, now 65, discovered a new passion teaching cooking to young people like Emmy, who needed an opportunity. Victoria Williams funded scholarships for the most dedicated students, finally finding peace with the mistake she'd made years earlier. And the twin sisters grew up together, united by the experience that had once separated them and the fate that had brought them back. Emmy learned that accepting help doesn't mean losing dignity, and Emily Grace discovered that privilege comes with responsibility. On the Institute's first anniversary, Robert gave an emotional speech. "Eleanor Carter taught me that honest work dignifies a person. Her granddaughter taught me that generosity multiplies opportunities. Today, 23 young people are building their futures here, and this is just the beginning." Emmy, now 15, stood on stage beside him. "My grandmother always said that those who plant kindness harvest happiness. I hope everyone who comes through here learns that. That honest work isn't a favor, it's a right. That dignity isn't begged for, it's earned." The Institute grew and became a benchmark for vocational education. Emily Grace pursued a medical career like her adoptive father, but always dedicated part of her time to the Institute. Emmy graduated with a degree in business and took over as coordinator. Robert and Martha continued working at the restaurant, now with the satisfaction of knowing they were contributing to something bigger. The Village Corner became a gathering place for the Institute's alumni who came to share their achievements. Victoria Williams remarried and brought her husband to volunteer at the Institute. She said she'd found redemption by helping others avoid the mistakes she'd made. 5 years after Emmy and Robert first met, the restaurant received a special plaque. Here worked Eleanor Carter, a woman of unparalleled character who taught us that dignity is built through honest work and love for others. And every Friday, Emmy and Emily Grace dined together at the village corner, honoring the memory of the grandmother they'd never known, but whose lessons guided their lives. The question a homeless girl had asked years earlier had become something much bigger than a job. It had become a philosophy of life that touched hundreds of people. Can I work as a waitress to eat the leftovers? Had become, how can we work together so no one has to settle for life's leftovers? The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe Emmy made the right choices? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know if you've ever experienced something similar. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.